Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. When I started this podcast in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women business owners, creatives, and entrepreneurs. In each episode, my guests provide resources, valuable tips, and inspiration. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strength to achieve success on their own terms. Hi there, this is Deborah. I want to do this podcast today because I've been looking at a lot of the 9/11, commemorations and recollections on social media particularly, and just kind of thinking about what happened during that time. And what I really was thinking about was I've seen some people saying that if only the country could go back to how it was on September 12th, which was after the attack. And I think on some level there is maybe people who have a different vantage point of how things were then or what happened then and after. And then there was also the trauma that a lot of us who were alive at that time, who witnessed it, experienced it, would still be carrying. And I think that's the thing that is very important for people to realize, that you are still carrying trauma from things that happened. That doesn't go away. And it's like when you've lost someone, when you're in grief, that doesn't just evaporate, as I think sometimes people think it does. It just goes away in time. You may learn to process it, but it doesn't go away. It's still there. It's still in your body. But you have to find ways to deal with it in some way, I think, in order to move on in any kind of healthy way. So what I wanted to just share is, I guess, my recollection of it, my personal recollection, and also kind of tie that back into how if we have gone through a traumatic event, if you've gone through some trauma, that it is very important that you try to seek some kind of help, to do something to help yourself to process it. And since I have had a couple of, more than a couple of shows talking about mental health or emotional health, it's important to note, I think, that we have to kind of look at that and take care of ourselves, because there's a lot to process and a lot happens. And I kind of feel in our society we are kind of told we should just keep moving on and not deal with these things. And it doesn't help. It doesn't help. So, that day, for me, started out, pretty simply, as I'm sure it did for a lot of people. And it was just a kind of a beautiful September day, a little crisp, in the morning. Blue skies. I drove to Jersey City from where I live in central New Jersey because I need to take the PATH train to get into New York because I was working there at the time. And I would park near my mom's house downtown Jersey City. And the thing about the Twin Towers is it was always something you could see from downtown. You could see from her house. And like if you're in a turnpike, you drive by when you're going towards like 14, C and B and all that. You could see the New York skyline, downtown Jersey City, definitely pre-gentrification. You probably had a lot more access to the waterfront. I mean, you do now, but it's a little different setup than it may have been then. But you would go down to the waterfront, you could see the skyline, I remember when there was a blackout in New York at one time, we just went to the waterfront because you never see the skyline dark. There was tons of people down there because we've never seen anything like that before. So the New York skyline was very much a part of Jersey City, definitely a part of the downtown skyline, because the buildings there weren't, at least at the time, large enough to compete with the towers. I remember my mother always saying that, she saw the towers, that she knew that she was, almost home. There's no way you could get lost, no matter where you were, where you may have gotten off the turnpike or wherever, in Jersey City, because if you saw the towers, you knew where you should head to. So that was very much a part of everything there. So I was driving down the street to go to her house, and the main street I was going down, there were the towers. It looks like it's right in Jersey City, because that's how tall they were and that's how close we are. I should say we were, because I no longer live there, to New York. Very much always there, part of it. Part of, I guess you could say, the visual identity of the city. And parked and got on the train. Went to work. I was working Midtown at that time, right across the street from Radio City Music Hall, if you're familiar with the geography of New York, around 52nd, 53rd Street. And, la la la, there I am, heading to work. Didn't seem like any big deal. Went up to my floor, 30-something or whatever, in the building. And, turning on my computer, putting things down, getting coffee, drinking coffee. And someone says, a plane hit one of the towers. So immediately we're thinking, this is horrible, but it must have been a private plane or some small plane, and something must have happened, and that's what took place. So I'm trying to get on the CNN website at that time. I didn't have a sophisticated phone as I have now. I was in flip phone land. I don't even remember right now if iPhone was a thing then. If it was, I couldn't afford it, so I didn't have one. But I had a flip phone, so there was not, I wasn't like trying to look on there to see anything. I was looking at my work computer, trying to get on, and noticing that it's, kind of hard to make the connection. It's just a lot, I guess a lot of people are reacting, getting online and all that. And I'm just, I want to check this out, what's going on, and then I believe I called my mom, and she said, they heard this big noise, and they went outside because they could hear it from where they were downtown Jersey City. They could hear this noise, and they went outside to the street where they could look down this main street, like the one I turned down to get to her house. And they saw that, when the tower was on fire. And then she told me that there was another plane that hit. I'm still feeling this right now. That's what I was telling you. You think that these things go away, but they don't. They're still in you. And that's when I knew this was not an accident, and this was scary. And I was like, oh my God. So then, she's going back out to see what's going on, and then I called, this guy was, seeing at the time, cause he was in town, and I knew he was having a meeting, and I think it was down there. And I called, I didn't get an answer. And I'm like, oh my God, is he down there? What's going on? So I couldn't in that moment even think about anybody else I knew who was down there. But as it turned out, I personally knew about 3 different people who would have been down there that day. One, a high school friend who would have been in the building, but he had a meeting off site. So each person, there was a reason they weren't there that day, or weren't there at that time. So then, my coworker, who also is in New Jersey, turns up, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I think we gotta go. We got to get out of here because we don't know what's happening. We don't know what's next. And there's all kinds of rumors, and people are thinking other buildings are going to get hit. And here we are in the middle of New York, which you would think would be the target. We'd better get going. So we kind of got it together. Some of the people came in, people are stunned, they're shocked, they're just having, meltdowns of whatever's happening. We don't even wait for, our manager or any higher ups to say anything. I like back myself, back up, let's go. So we headed downstairs, and now there's people, in the streets even more, because of course in the early morning going to work in New York, the streets are going to be crowded, but even more people are out there. And we're standing there in front of the building not knowing, what do we do? Where do we go? How do we, what we should do? And so a few of us, it's me and my friend Kieran and another coworker of ours who lives in New Jersey. We said, we'll just try to get back to the path. Say, well, if we can get to Jersey City, my car is there, I could drive us back to central New Jersey. So we head down to the PATH train on 33rd Street, which is like 34th Street, in New York, and, a bunch of people there, of course. And then we find out, well, they're not running any trains. So we're like, oh my God, how do we get off this island, for goodness sake? As it turns out, people have to walk, walk across bridges, walk to where they need to go, which is not easy to do if you're, out in the boroughs, and much less us trying to get back to New Jersey. So they're like, then nothing's running, we're not running the trains, so you gotta go get the ferry. So it means we have to walk all the way to the west side. We gotta walk across to there from where we are around 6th Avenue to get a ferry, which you hope is running. So that's a nice long walk. I didn't even have my sneakers on. I had some other shoes that were flat, but for goodness sake, it wasn't comfortable after a while of walking. So we're walking, we're talking, we're speculating what we think is happening. We crossed through around like Times Square, and it's packed, people everywhere. But a lot of people were in restaurants, a lot of people were, walking around. It was super busy, and I'm not saying people weren't feeling some kind of way about all this, but it's not like people were running around screaming or yelling or crying. They were just going about their business. And for some, maybe they were like, hey, I can't get home yet. I'm just going to go in this restaurant and eat. I'm just going to sit here and drink or whatever I have to do. So pretty much it was that kind of activity. People were just getting through it and going through it. And cause, it's New York. So people are just going to do what they have to do. So we just kept walking, and more people were coming as they realized that's what they had to do. And then we got to the ferry, and we had to wait in this line. Maybe we were in the line for like 2 hours. Just waiting, and going through the rows, I guess, to get to closer to the ferry. And people speculating. We would see fighter jets going by from time to time. And who did it? What happened? Da da da. And I'm trying not to use up my phone too much because it's kind of losing power. Couldn't really make any calls. Couldn't get through. Because that's the thing about being in this part of the country. It's pretty much, I think, last I saw, like the I-95 corridor is where most people in the country live. At least I was at one time. So, I mean, when something happens and people everybody's running for the cell phones, you can't get through. Which is not a good thing. You just can't get through. At that time, I wasn't doing any texting, because like I said, I'm, still in flip phone land. And, my mom didn't have a cell at that time, so that wasn't going to work. So I was like, you can't really get in touch with people. I was depending on another friend of mine who had better service, a better service provider. He was trying to give some updates. We just talking, speculating, looking up, looking around, trying to figure this out. So a couple hours later, we get to the ferry, and we get on, and we think we're going to Jersey City, because there's a ferry stop there. So we figured, okay, we're going there, but no, we're going to go to Weehawken. So like, oh Jesus, which is a couple of towns away. But what can you do? At least you're getting off of Manhattan Island. So, what can you do? So they're taking us, and we're going kind of by Lower Manhattan. And of course we're looking to see, because I'm expecting to see like maybe half of buildings there. I don't know what I'm going to see. But I just saw smoke. I didn't see anything but smoke. I couldn't see anything. Not sure what I was going to see, but I didn't see anything. So we just kept going. Went to Weehawken, and let everybody out. So now we have to get from Weehawken, which is, not too far from Hoboken. And Hoboken's like a mile square city, I believe it's called. So now you gotta get from one end of Hoboken to the next. So, I was like, wow, my feet are hurting, tired. I feel like I've just been walking and walking and walking and walking. And when am I ever going to see, home again? See my mom, when is this going to happen? And I kind of remember the strange comparison to watching Gone with the Wind, which is a strange comparison, I guess. And, Scarlett trying to get home. She's got to get home. And you just feel like, damn, when am I ever going to get home? Can I get home? Please, God. Cause you just feel like I could just get home. Everything's going to be okay. And to have that feeling, it's really kind of weird. And you realize how people would feel when they're displaced, when they feel like something has happened, and if only they could get home again, they're going to feel better. And maybe that's irrational, but you just feel that so strongly. Just get to that familiar place that's welcoming to you. Somehow it's all going to make sense to you. Everything you're going through in this moment. So, we did some walking to try to get a bus. And one place we walked past was where Macy's has their warehouse for their balloons, their floats for the parade, the Thanksgiving Day parade. And a couple of guys were out there handing out bottles of water. They just handed them out to us as we walked by. And I was so thankful for them. Because you just needed that in that moment. You needed to feel that, people are doing something, caring about what people are going through, and they're just like in a daze, and they're just trying to get somewhere, trying to get closer to home. And they're just standing there handing out this water. They had these bottles of water, just handing them out as you walk by. And I always remember that their kindness to just do that. And so we got on the bus, and then they want money. I was like, you want money? The ferry didn't even ask for money. So I'm like, okay. I didn't even think about this in the moment, because you're still, your mind is in 100 different places. So you gotta go change for the bus. But, I guess it's not personal. It's business, even during a freaking national emergency. So we got on the bus to ride down to the other end of Hoboken, because it was just, we just needed a break from walking. And then we got up there, and then we still have to walk probably a couple miles, literally, to Jersey City. Not really a couple miles to Jersey City, but to walk to where my mom's house was. Just walk. It just seemed endless. Just walking and walking and walking, wherever we get there. So, eventually we did. Eventually we did get there, and just, passing a lot of people in the street who were there because a lot of people work in Jersey City from New York or from other places, and they're trying to figure out what they can do. If they can't get back to New York City, how are they going to do whatever, how are they going to get anywhere if the trains aren't running, or if the ferries aren't going in the direction. If they lock everything down, people are pretty much stuck wherever they are. So there was a lot of that too, like people who were there who now need to get back home, and they can't. Or they don't know how they're going to do it. So, we end up getting to my mom's house, and we just all come in, and she gives us nice, I think it was iced tea, and she's, they're there watching the TV, and we just sit down and just catch our breath. And that's all we could do for a little while. I think she had the air on a little bit because it had gotten warmer. And we just needed to just, oh God, just kind of sit there and breathe for a little bit. So we did that. And then my feet were like killing me. Like I said, even though they were flat shoes, they didn't really have cushion because I didn't really wear them for cushion because I thought I was going to be just a normal day. So then we got in the car and I was like, okay, we'll take us back to Central Jersey. And so I went to go on the turnpike that's downtown, and that's closed. You can't get on the turnpike. Okay. I mean, there's various ways to get where we need to go, but the turnpike is a little quicker. So then I said, okay, there's another entrance that may still be open. So I went on uptown to another entrance that's, I believe it's 15E. That's up near Newark. So I, had to go uptown, Jersey City, and then go there, and it was open. It's kind of a smaller entrance exit. A lot of trucks use it. So, perhaps that's why that one was open. I'm not sure why they closed them, but, that one was open. So we just went through there. And what was so weird about that was, we only passed one car coming the other direction through the whole ride. From exit 15 to exit 10. One car. And that I've never seen. I've never been to the turnpike and not seen any cars. Ever. It was just weird. It was surreal. It was like those movies with the last person on earth. You're just all driving down the highway. No one's there. That's what it felt like. It was just weird. And when we passed by, in the turnpike, we didn't pass. Normally, if we'd gone on the turnpike from 14, you would have passed still by the New York skyline, but we were further. Now I'm trying to remember where that connects. In any case, we didn't. We still couldn't really see anything. We couldn't see any remains of buildings or what we thought would be there. So we just kept driving, and then got off further up around. Maybe around 11, I think. We may have gotten off there instead. And, excuse me. Through all this, one of my friends, Kieran, was calling his friend, who he used to work with when we were at Lucent, because he had taken a job in New York City also, but he was working in the World Trade Center. And he kept trying to call him. And he was like, he just kept trying to call him. And, we're just hoping the best that, hopefully they were evacuated. It's okay, it's hard to get through to anybody. But the whole time I just remember he was trying to reach him. And, so he dropped off his friend. We got to Central Jersey, and then I dropped him off. And then I just had it, kind of back to where I lived at the time. And, not too far away, just kind of really minutes away. And before I went to my apartment, I stopped by the liquor store. And I got a really big bottle of wine. And it was just so weird because you get there and everybody's just going about their business. Like I said, I'm not saying that people weren't concerned, upset, whatever. But I'm saying that people were just going about their business, It could have been a normal day if you didn't know better. And I just felt like I was like a person out of time. And what I mean by that is that you come from that situation, and then you're kind of still in a daze. You're still trying to figure out what's going on. And then here you are, and everybody's just going about their business. Just going through it, And you're like, did that really just happen to me? Really just go through that? It's weird. It's weird because you kind of feel like, how is the rest of the world still going on? When we just came out of this place where everything has changed in just a few awful moments. So I got my wine, headed to my apartment, and I just kind of sat on the couch and just tried to collect myself. And then turn on the TV, and then I kind of saw what happened. Because I hadn't seen any of it up to that point. Now it's like 5 or 6 o'clock, and that I'm home at my home, not at my mom's home. And we'd left really early in the morning, maybe, I guess 9:30 or so from the city. And usually that, a whole commute from that part of New Jersey to New York City might be 2 hours altogether, counting getting to the train, taking the trains, all that. But it was almost like, a whole entire day getting back. And then I saw the recordings of what had happened. The planes hitting, the building collapsing. I was just like, it was so upsetting to watch that because like I said, I had no idea that had happened. I was just in shock. And then I went and listened to my messages, and I got a message from the guy who I had left a message for. He was okay. But I heard message after message after message from friends of mine who knew I worked in New York, but didn't know where I worked. And they were all, call me, are you okay? And I was like, oh my God. I hadn't even considered that they would, even be thinking about that. And I'm not saying that because I don't think my friends cared about me, but I didn't connect with the fact that anybody would think I was in danger. It just didn't click until I started hearing all the messages. So then I was like, oh my God. So now I called them all back because, if you don't hear something, you would expect the worst. So I called them back. So that went on till maybe about 11:30 at night. And each time I had to retell the story of, our journey to get out of the city. So by then I was exhausted. I was completely exhausted. So I just stayed on the couch for 2 days. After that, I don't even remember getting up. I must have, but I stayed on the couch. I didn't go into work. I just stayed there. Just stayed on the couch. So finally I figured, I gotta get up and go. Because if I don't go back, I'm not going back. So I gotta go. That's just how I felt at that point. So I got myself together and I went back went back to the trains and went back to the city to my job. But everything was changed from that point on. As you might imagine, everything was changed. And it was just kind of hard to think we're just going to go back into what we do as though all this didn't happen. But of course, you really don't. You do, you just get through it, but then you don't. Mentally and emotionally. And then I, found out that Kieran's friend, who we'd been calling, didn't make it. He didn't make it. So, yeah. That was, kind of eerie to consider, all that time. He was trying to reach him and it was already too late. And it just kind of brings home to you what other people went through. Hearing other stories. Again, like I said, from people I knew who were going to be there, then weren't. Or, another friend who had a direct report who was down there for some reason. Maybe she commuted through there. And debris fell on her. So there's a lot of people who got killed, injured. Just because, debris falling, people falling, a lot of stuff that went down for people there who too have seen. And, the guy mentioned, stuff he saw he didn't really want to talk about. That he actually witnessed. So it's a lot. It's a lot. So after that, going back in the office, just trying to stay focused, trying to figure it all out, what's going on. People super subdued on the trains, like not even there. It's like people just there but not there. I remember witnessing a fight, which I never saw on the path. Two grown guys, and they were just like struggling. They fell out of the train, but there was even no noise. They didn't even yell at each other. They were just struggling, It was just eerie. It's almost like people didn't have the voices to voice what they were feeling. Like all the oxygen had been sucked out. and people were just moving through it, but something was missing from them. Or from us, I should say, because it was just weird. A weird, very, very weird time. Especially going back to the city now, and you're like, oh my God. You know, you're thinking all these things, and you know, there I am in this tall building, and I'm like, okay. You know, something goes down, what do? Well, you get out. That's, you know, thoughts should come into your head. And of course, not, you know, after that, then there were things where people would call in and say, oh, I saw a package, like on the subway, so they would shut down the subways in New York, and now everybody's got to walk to where they got to go, because there's a suspicious package and everything must stop. That happened a few times, and that was unnerving. But interestingly enough, as I recall, it only seemed to happen in the morning. It didn't always happen in the evening. Maybe it did, but I wasn't aware of it. So, you know, that was interesting. And also what happened after as well is when people started to put up signs of their missing loved ones. So all through this subway, New York subway particularly, you walk and you would see signs with pictures of missing people. Have you seen this person? Have you seen this person? Have you seen this person? And it was just sign after sign after sign. And every day you would pass them and you try not to look because you're figuring, you know, did this person make it? You don't know. Just kind of hoping they did, but, you know, did they? And just seeing all these different pictures and just every day passing that. It was hard. It was hard not to see it, but you're seeing it. You're experiencing it. And maybe I would have the luxury not to see it, but the people who did have those loved ones, who they know what happened to them, people who did go through that trauma firsthand, you know, wouldn't have the luxury not to be connected to those events. But it was really pretty difficult here. And I was at that point, I was like, you know, I need to see about getting out of this, working in the city, because I don't think I can continue this way. And actually, I stayed there for probably another couple of years after, to be honest. But it was just kind of having a focus and trying not to think about all the things that were upsetting and stressful and traumatic. But then we, you know, had to do these drills from time to time. The company would have these drills where, in case there's an attack, or I guess they figured there'd be some warning, then now they give you these little to-go bags. And, you know, you have to go, well, we're all going to meet in this location. And I'm like, and then the one location for our group was like near, it was near Central Park. So it was further up town. And I'm saying, my train is back here on 33rd Street. Am I really going to go all the way up here to like 60 something street when I know something's going down? I'm going to go home. Excuse me. So that made no sense to me, because we were supposed to be, you know, they acted like we were all going to go to this location. The manager was going to count us and make sure we were all there, and then you can go about your business. I'm like, that makes no sense. But there was a lot of that went on. And that was stressful, because it's a constant reminder that, you know, things were different now. They were going to be different now. And, so I remember when there was a blackout, maybe a couple of years later, and I can't remember timing. I had left early that day because I had an appointment, actually a hair appointment in New Jersey. So I left early, took like half a day, because I had to, you know, get this hair together. And there was a blackout later that day. And some of my friends got stuck there. Some, the same one, Kieran, he and some other friends were able to stop a bus driver heading to New Jersey, because they were all told not to pick up people, which makes no sense. And just convince them, you know, please take us to New Jersey. We'll make it from there. And they were able to get out. But some people to sleep on the lobby floor. Some people to walk across the bridge, like say to Brooklyn and wherever. It was just a mess. Because they just shut down everything getting out, which to me made no sense, but So that was kind of the next thing that happened after. And I was so glad I wasn't there, because I was like, if I'd gone there and I had been stuck, I think I just would have quit that day. I wouldn't have ever come back, because it was like, no, I can't do this again. So yeah, that was wild, but I wasn't there for it, thank goodness, because that was hard for people, again, to try to get home, or people suddenly charging maybe $50, $60, $100 to drive them across a bridge or something, just nuts. But so I avoided that, and a couple of years later, I was able to come back to work in New Jersey. But the thing about what I think I mentioned originally about September 12th was that, yes, for a very short period of time, there was a point where I think a lot of people in the country wanted to come together and wanted to show solidarity with each other. Because I remember attending a vigil downtown Jersey City, and we all went to the waterfront, and a lot of people were there, and a candlelight vigil. People really want to come together, even though there had been already, I believe, violence against Muslim Americans, against Sikhs, because, people thinking, oh, this person has a turban, so, they must be someone I can hurt or kill. So there was a period of time where that was the mood. It really, really was. And it may be hard for people to even believe that now. But it was there for a short time. But the powers that be did not capitalize on that, or didn't want to, because they had their own agendas. And then things kind of went sideways. Yeah. So, yeah, I think there was that mood at that time, but it wasn't really captured. But I did feel that the people I encountered didn't want that. They didn't want that very much. And I think a lot of that is because people were traumatized. They were stunned. The fact of this happening here, especially in the United States, not that we haven't ever had attack like, let's say, Pearl Harbor, which a lot of, us may not consciously remember. We weren't here when it happened, we weren't alive when it happened, but still that was a traumatic event in this country. And I'm not saying that to negate any traumatic events in any other countries or any other people experience. I'm saying that people have this feeling that, well, this shouldn't happen here, and we sure shouldn't have that feeling, should we? But it's traumatic. It's traumatic when you're witnessing. I mean, heck, it was traumatic for me going through Sandy. That's a whole other story, which I will not share here at this time, because that's not what this is about. But that was a whole other thing. That was traumatic. And I guess my point is, all these things we carry in our bodies, they're still there. Like, as I'm going through this now, it's still there. I don't want to keep feeling those feelings. I don't want to feel those anxieties. I mean, now it's hard for me to get on an elevator because I always feel like I'm being too closed in. And for some reason that triggers me. Even though when I worked in the city after 9/11, I was on elevators every day to get up to my office. But for some reason, once I didn't have to do that anymore, it just filled me with a lot of fear and anxiety. And I'm closed in. Suppose something happens, I'm on this elevator, I can't get out, All of that started to work on me mentally, I guess, and emotionally. All those feelings you think you have to put aside just so you can get through the day, they don't really go anywhere. They're still in you. They're still there. And that's the thing, people really have to acknowledge that we go through these traumatic events, whether they're large events, global events, personal ones. They're there. And getting some kind of help, some kind of therapy, some kind of something that you can do to help yourself to acknowledge that, yes, I do feel this. I feel this anxiety. I feel this fear. I feel this anger. I feel all of this. I'm grieving, whatever it is. Not just have some compassion for yourself. That you're human, you're going to feel some kind of way. It's not weakness to feel what you feel. But find a way to process it, that it's healthy, because when you don't, it leads to so much destruction. It's destruction from within ourselves, and there's destruction from without. The things we may do to other people, because we're still acting out whatever this is we're holding inside. And that's the thing, when I, had those podcasts with other guests talking about mental health or emotional health, or what you can do to help yourself, because you can't really help anybody else until you start within yourself first. It's got to start there. Then you can work on doing whatever it is you feel your mission is outside of that. Otherwise, it's not going to work. So, for those people going through, that trauma or other ones, because a lot has happened since then, for us to process and try to get through. Things are still happening right now with the pandemic. It doesn't make sense to try to pretend it's not going on, or things that have happened haven't happened, and their effect on us and how we feel about ourselves, how we feel about each other. It's all there. It's all inside our bodies. It all is kind of stored there. And it has to be a way to process all that. It really has to be. But yes, I guess my point about the September 12th was, for a minute, that was there. But, divide and conquer is very, very effective way to get people to work against others and to create chaos. Because when people come together, they can really create great things. And, that's not everybody's agenda. And that can be true in a global scale, that can be true in a national scale, that can be true in your family, with your friends, at your workplace, where, someone realizes, oh, here's a vulnerability, and we're going to exploit that for our own agenda. And then the thing that you could have had together now falls apart. Everybody's fighting each other. But you're less effective. Because now, it's the thing you could have had together has been blown apart, literally. And that's something I think we all need to keep in mind. There's lessons from these things we all need to keep in mind. In our lives. Oh, somebody's doing something out there with the yards, in case you hear that noise, because it's, another nice day. Yard work must be done, I guess. So, but that's just something to keep in mind. These are lessons to be learned. Sadly, I'm not saying everything should be a lesson. Sometimes you don't want any more lessons, but there are things that take away from all these things that we experience, and how we can, think about how we're going through life and how we're interacting. All of that's things we can understand. Also, to just appreciate, or maybe even sound corny, but appreciate the moment that you're in. Appreciate what you have. If you're in a bad situation, then you got to see, how can I move out of this? Can I move out of this? What steps can I take to move out of this? If there's something I need to resolve with family, how can I do that? I need to work on that. Resolve within yourself. If you've been through business losses, over these past few years, and pandemic has affected you, or affected you in your family, or losses of family or friends, or your health has been compromised, what can you do going forward so that you can, have some level of healing? But healing doesn't mean this stuff goes away. Your feelings about it go away. Or, whatever you're feeling inside goes away. It's there. But how can I work with this in a way that I can move forward in a healthy way? So that it's not always negative and destructive. That's the challenge. And I wish I had all those answers, but I don't. I don't have all those answers, but I do know that we could just do what we can do to help ourselves, have compassion for ourselves, and then we can take steps to do what we can do for others around us, or, do in your business, or do with your family, your friends, your workplace, your country, whatever it is you feel called to do. It's, it has to start from within you first. It really does. And just to acknowledge that these things have had an effect on you. And don't run from it. Don't dismiss it. Because it has. In varying degrees, I just kind of think of it like ripples from a pond, if someone throws a rock or something in a pond. And in that center, there's that splash, but the ripples go out and out and out and out. So all these events affect people. They may not have been there that day. They may not have lost someone. But all these things affect people. Just like people being affected who maybe have been there and their health was compromised and they're still affected. Or they, have a stress or a trauma. Or passed away later because of the effects of things. Or just their mindset, their emotional state. All of that is valid. That's all part of health. All of it. And maybe, we need to really acknowledge that all these things are part of health. It's not just physical, it's emotional, mental as well. I think we really should acknowledge that. Without a doubt. Without a doubt. I think now we really should acknowledge that. So, I think I've gone on long enough. I just wanted to give my thoughts and recollections because it just seemed like there was a lot of that I was seeing. Excuse me. And I just wanted to share that. And, share that with you and have you think about, whatever it is you're going through. To have some compassion for yourself. Get some help if you can, if you need it. And then just see what your next steps are in your life. Whether it's from a business perspective or your health, mindset, whatever it is you need to do. Just be compassionate with yourself. I think that's a great start. And also check out the other podcast episodes that I have that deal with mental health, emotional health, that kind of thing. There's a few of them. I will try to, I don't know if I can link them, because I post this on several different platforms. So I'll see if I could add links, possibly, or just maybe mention the names of the shows. Or that way it makes it easier. I don't know. I'll see what I can do. If not, then if you don't see them, then definitely just check through the listing of shows, whatever podcast platform you're on. And usually I try to put those titles in the show title so that you'll know that this is what this particular thing is about. And just kind of see, listen and see what ways that could be helpful for you. In the meantime, there's going to be some new podcasts coming up, just taking a little break. There's going to be some podcasts coming up, probably either late September, early October. Can't believe that we're already talking about the end of the year. It's wild how fast time goes by. But there are going to be a few more coming up. I've had to kind of scale back a little bit in recordings because of just things I have going on with work, of course, and editing a book, starting another one, working on presenting some writing classes. I think I may have mentioned that. So those are things you can also find out more about. My website, thebaileycoach.com. You can see links there for, what I'm into. And if you want to find out more about that, and thebaileycoach.com/brightbooks is where all my fiction is. So if you're into paranormal, fantasy, romance and speculative fiction, that kind of good stuff, then definitely check that out. You can see what I've also been up to there. So in any case, I want to thank you very much for listening. Thanks so much for being a subscriber, supporter of the show. And as I said, just take care of yourself. Have compassion for yourself. And, we'll just get through it. Take care of ourselves and just do the best we can to, focus on health in every aspect of what that means, and support each other the best we can. So, have a good day, everybody, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye. Thanks for joining us. Don't forget to stop by womenentrepreneursradio.com to read extended bios of the show guests, and also find links there for their websites and any offers that they have shared with you. And stop by our Facebook page at facebook.com/womenentrepreneurs.